Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Ad Age Remotely. I'm Jeanine Poggi, Senior Editor here at Ad Age. And today I'm joined live by Andrew Swinand, CEO at Leo Burnett. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure.
Where are you working from during these times?
You know, I'm in Chicago today, but I've been spending most of my time in Michigan, actually. We have a house in Michigan, and it's been a nice place to be away. So
sort of been driving out there on the weekends?
yes.
Or
Well, actually, just the opposite. Been coming back here to water my plants once a week, but spending most of the time in Michigan. So,
how has working remotely been for you?
you know what? Actually, I feel like it's gone much better than everyone had expected. We had the technology in place, and it was definitely a migration in terms of work habits. But I feel like everybody flexed pretty quickly to working over video conference and collaborating and creatively figuring out new ways to produce work and support our clients. But it's I would say the one downside, I've never sat in one place for as long in my life. It's the first 3 weeks, especially, like I would literally not move for like 12 straight hours. And I think one of my key learnings was like, not everything needs to be a video conference, and being able to pause to at least be able to get up and walk around and get a little movement into your daily routine.
So before we get started any further, for those of you at home watching, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in our social channels, and we will try to get to them during this conversation. So Andrew, you mentioned, sitting all day and not everything needs to be a Zoom. Are you finding other ways to sort of connect with employees besides doing these, FaceTime and Zoom meetings?
I think one of the things we've started is one from a leadership team. We do just a quick stand up first thing in the morning, 3 times a week. And then I think also I feel like Publicis Group and our tour especially have just done a phenomenal job with sharing videos, weekly updates. Our tour is doing twice a week emails to the entire company. And what we've been doing is a lot of short Q&As. And the thing I've just been encouraging everybody is reach out early and often. We've also worked to identify employees who are by themselves. It's interesting. I feel like the two employee populations who have had the hardest time is parents with young kids, because all of a sudden your two jobs merged into one. And also a lot of the younger employees who, moved to the city and are by themselves in an apartment that was a place to sleep, and now it's become a place to sleep, eat, work, and live. And, again, just encouraging leaders to proactively reach out as often as possible and make sure those people feel connected.
Are you doing anything, fun internally to sort of rally employees or make those connections, especially for the people living alone and like you mentioned, maybe some of the younger employees?
We are. We've had virtual happy hours and team parties and team check-ins. One of the things that we've really emphasized, though, a lot is I've been focused a lot on bringing mindfulness to the agency as a best practice. And I think as we look at this time now, it's more important than ever. So we have a group called Conscious Minds, and we've been doing daily meditations. And then I actually did an hour-long conversation just talking about movement, mindfulness, and meditation and best practices for all of our employees, just to help them be more present and help them to be more focused. And I think part of the key thing in that is, if our core product is creativity and ideas, if people are stressed and triggered and exhausted, I think it's not going to be an environment that's conducive to new ideas.
Yeah.
So everything we can do to help support people to be more present, to be more focused, and be physically and mentally their best selves, I think is both time and money well spent.
Yes, speaking of meditation and mindfulness, I know Leo Burnett has been leaning into mental health awareness. Can you talk about some of the work that the agency has been doing in that respect?
Sure. I think part of it is just education. And again, I talked about this idea of movement, mindfulness, and meditation. I think you've seen some of the statistics, but people are saying, if you're having a brainstorm and people are walking, you have 10 times the number of ideas. To my earlier comment of basically sitting still, it basically becomes really challenging. Similarly, building in the idea of mental health breaks. I'm on the CEO board of the American Heart Association, and we had a study and a session with the J&J Leadership Institute, and they had done a study of professional tennis players. And the idea behind it was what wins championship matches is what they talk about as the 6 seconds in between. And what this means is the 6 seconds in between sets and in between serves, where people can breathe, take a moment, lower their heart rate and recover, is actually what gives you the endurance and the longevity to win the match. And I think it's hugely applicable for our industry, where you're doing back-to-back video conferences, you're always on, and again, you're always on physically and mentally in front of the screen. How do you start bringing in and building in that 6 seconds in between to give yourself a break, walk around the block, walk around the room, run up and down the steps, or even do just a 2-minute mental pause to clear your brain and give yourself energy. So it's just one example, but what we've been trying to do is find these nuggets to basically help our employees practice movement, meditation, and mindfulness, and again help them be more present and supportive with each other.
How can that apply to brands and how they're speaking to consumers?
I think there's, it's interesting, a lot of brands, you think about your annual plan, this is a moment where the literal zeitgeist of the nation is changing so rapidly. I think about work we're doing right now with Bank of America, and Bank is incredibly attuned to basically what's going on and tracking and understanding the mood of the nation, and critically and rightfully so. But I feel like right now, brands need to be more agile, more flexible, and more fluid. And it's really changed how we've worked and how we've approached our client partnerships, in that I feel like so much of establishing a brand and basically working to...
I'm going to do some shout outs from some people watching at home. We have Robin from Florida, Leopoldo from Chile, Mariella from Mexico, Anders from Denmark, Katie from California, Luther from Georgia, Tiago from Portugal, and Joel from Lebanon. Thank you for tuning in. Andrew,
thank you. I lost you for a second. So, but I think so much for brands right now is understanding where and how your product fits with consumers' lives, and actually being much more agile and flexible in that, typically with a brand where you're in much more of a steady state, you can establish brand equities and brand priorities and stick with them. I feel like we're at a moment now where, I think about a client like Campbell's and the role they play, and you think about, soup and the interaction. I feel like there's an evolution where people are returning to nostalgia and what they know and what they love. And again, how people interact with that brand is evolving. And I think, therefore, we as stewards of the brand and partners to these brand marketers need to be more flexible and agile, and be updating our communications and updating more rapidly and more quickly.
What has been the biggest challenge in navigating all of this?
I think part of it is finding the link between culture, the product, and then what is the role of the brand, and what's the role of the brand in terms of helping to solve people's problems at that time. And again, you think about we work with General Motors, You hit a moment where every auto dealership is closed. Now the dealers are they're starting to manufacture again. Dealerships are reopening, and this is a daily basis on a state by state basis. So again, I think agile content. I think more real time consumer understanding, tracking the pulse of basically what people are thinking and feeling. And then lastly, I think the ability to do custom content and be able to be more specific, with different states being in different places, the ability to do personal messages at scale, the ability to speak to different individuals for certain brands is going to be exponentially more important. And again, the ability to basically segment content and manage these real-time communications. I think it's interesting. You think about the idea of direct-to-consumer communications. In a week where every retailer was closed, Walmart and Amazon hired 250,000 people. So think about that for a minute. That's like 2 Procter and Gambles created in a week. It's true, right? I mean, it's like mind blowing. I feel we've shifted to a moment where brands need to have much more personal one-to-one conversations with consumers. And again, it's exponentially increased as states have different, literally some states are open and some are closed. How do you deal with that as a retailer? And then, if you think about the role of the brand as we evolve from a stay-at-home environment to reopening and reintegrating, I think it's more important than ever for agencies to be agile, for agencies to be responsive and proactive in terms of helping to bring client solutions.
We're hearing a lot this week of agencies making cuts. How is Leo Burnett mitigating costs? Are you expecting to see layoffs or furloughs in the pipeline?
Not right now for Leo Burnett. We had a really strong 2019 and an incredible Q1 of 2020. I think like everybody, the situation is evolving, but knock on wood. So far, we've been fortunate, in being able to mitigate that. But obviously, it's a hard time in the industry and something that is changing on a daily basis. So, what I've shared with my leaders and with our team is now's a time when creativity is more important than ever, and we need to just be proactively solving problems for our clients. Head down, taking care of their business is the best way we can take care of our own.
Yeah. We have a question from Starsky on LinkedIn. Are you considering opening your office back up? And how has your team outlined a phased approach of how the office environment will be in the near future?
Question we're still exploring, and we're exploring at a group level. The thing I can say for me is I feel like we are successfully managing work remotely, which alleviates the need to rush. I also think that it's going to be more of a phased approach. And what I mean by that is because we can effectively work remotely, it actually allows us to maintain the office as a clean, safe place that people can go without having to say everyone needs to come back immediately. That said, it's a situation we're evaluating and monitoring on a daily basis, like everyone else, to try to figure out when and what's right.
I'm here with Andrew Swinand, CEO of Leo Burnett. In the days following as the crisis escalated, we saw a lot of marketers quickly switch their creative to address like COVID-19, talk about what they're doing to help. What do you think is the next phase of these marketing messages? What tone do you think brands are going to strike as we sort of work towards a new normal and things slowly start to open up?
I think again, it's going to be based off of the brand and the relationship with consumers. But for me, as you think about retailers, a lot of it's going to be safety and people feeling comfortable coming back. I think as you look at a lot of CPG, a lot of the CPGs had really, really strong uh, results in the last month with stock up. A lot of it's going to be just reminding people about why they bought those products and what they love about them. I think it's really going to vary by category. But again, I think to my earlier comment, I think it's going to be literally 3 to 4 week blocks of communication. And part of where we need to partner with brands is to be continuously monitoring, continuously updating. But again, I think it's going to be a combination of reminding people what they love, making people feel safe and comfortable if it's a place you need to go and visit. And then I think third, just a return to hope and eyes towards the future.
Yeah, as we get into what is this week 8 or so of being home, I think one of the things that we're starting to see is people don't want to forget about everyday moments, or special moments, things like weddings and graduations, and this is the time of year where we're beginning upon those type of moments. So we're seeing things like virtual graduations, virtual weddings pop up. How could brands be a part of these moments, and what do you see in terms of moving forward, the potential moments that could be coming for brands to be a part of?
And I think again, this comes back to, we talk about this intersection of culture and brand. We've been working actually with Jared, who is the jewelry retailer, and we had brought them this idea of love can't wait. And again, as a retailer, Jared, like many, was forced to close a lot of their stores. But in the same respect, many people had weddings planned. So for me, it was a proactive idea we brought them, to basically acknowledge that people are in love and getting married. New York and other states are basically allowing virtual weddings. How can we as a brand basically help serve consumers? And again, we brought this idea to Jared, and it was days, not weeks, in terms of being able to get a site up, produce content, and I think there's already been 1,000 some odd virtual weddings that Jared's gone on to support. So again, I think as we think about this intersection of culture and brand, brands need to be looking at how do we and how do our products support graduation? How do we think about what our role is in terms of weddings or coming into the summer, and basically finding the right space to live in.
Yeah.
Please.
We have a question from Michael on LinkedIn. What are you doing to add value to your clients from an efficiency perspective?
I come back to Publicis Group on this. I feel like the group, with the acquisition of Epsilon, has been doing a lot, obviously, to build personal one-to-one. And Publicis Group recently launched the Pact. And basically, the Pact is a performance-based model, where basically we've aligned our compensation with delivering results to clients. It's 100% efficiency based. And basically, the bet the group has made is that in our partnership with Epsilon and our ability to understand people better than anyone in the world, we have the ability to basically deliver results, and deliver those results at scale.
So one of the things that I did want to talk about, Leo Burnett recently lost Allstate's business. And of course, the agency had been working with the insurer for 6 decades. Can you discuss that loss, especially like during this time?
Well, actually, you reported on it last August. Allstate made a decision to bring things in-house about 1.5 years ago. So it's not a now thing. Um, you know, it's you know a It's interesting. We are focused right now on how do we proactively bring solutions and creativity to our clients. But for Allstate, it was a story you reported last August, with their decision to go in house.
What is the pitching process looking like then right now? Like, is the pitch process still taking place? And
It
if
is.
so, what does it look like?
It's interesting. We are seeing that clients are still actively, and if not more so, looking for creative solutions. And with that, we are getting briefs and questions from clients, saying, "How can I think about this?" I think the thing that's changed in it is, when you're pitching an idea, doing it over a video conference is challenging because so much of creativity is the emotion and bringing it to bear. When you're 9 little boxes of Brady Bunch on the screen, it's a much harder process. But in the same respect, we have not seen a slowdown. There are about probably 10% of pitches have been postponed. But with that, we've had new interactions from clients saying, I have this problem. Can you bring me a creative solution? Can you help me basically to move this forward? And again, it's a lot more virtual interactions. And one of the conversations I was having with a client recently, they said, I'm about to give you this work. I've never even met these people. And their ask was, could we do an hour conversation where we don't present anything just to talk because I'm about to make a big decision with people that I've actually never sat in a room with. So it's kind of a weird thing, but in the same respect, I think it's about the work and about bringing ideas that solve problems. And again, I think Jared's a great example of that. That was something new for us, where we basically had a conversation that led to an idea.
What do you think might be some of the more long-term implications on the industry? Do you things like working remotely or even the creative process? How might that change once we, move to a new normal?
I would say 3 things. One, I believe that as an industry, that remote working and being more virtual is going to be here to stay. I feel like people are becoming more comfortable with it. And that's not to say that there's still not value in getting on a plane and meeting with people. But I do believe that there's going to be less people going to the office. And I think the office is going to be more of a place to collaborate and come together and less of a place where everyone needs to go every day. Secondarily, I think to my earlier comment on direct to consumer, I do believe there's going to be, there's been a 10-year acceleration in e-commerce. I was talking to, my 80-year-old parents are ordering groceries online. That would have never happened. So I do think there's going to be an increased need for personalization and contextual. And again, with the Epsilon acquisition, I think we're well served for that. I think the third thing is I think people's interactions with brands are going to evolve and change in that I do believe that people are discovering a lot of the things that are basically more rediscovering things that are nostalgic. And I think that, big events, sports as media, all of these things are going to be challenged in the short term. And again, I think this is a moment where creativity matters more than ever because we need to be able to solve for the new normal and apply our creativity to a new set of problems.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of creativity, of course, it's an industry just, based in creativity. How are you staying creative while at home? Any, new habits that you've picked up, new hobbies or other things to kind of stay creative while just sitting on these Zoom calls all day?
For me, honestly, it's like the best way to stir my blood is to get out and move around. I love working in the garden. And honestly, for me, going out and digging in the garden is the best way for me to get an idea and clear my mind. We talked earlier about movement, meditation, and mindfulness. I think clearing your head and basically giving some white space for you to have new ideas is the best way to allow creativity to flourish.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for joining us. And of course, thank you to our Ad Age crew, Alfred Mascaroni, Anna Sakula, Max Sternlicht, and Elise Liffring for making this live stream happen. And thanks for everyone for tuning in.
Thank you. Really appreciate you having me.
Thanks. Be well.
Be well, everyone. Yes, thank you.